Back in the day, we were ace at collaborating. We sat with our development teams, which was a simple but a huge deal for us because before we all sat together, we quite literally had to run across the road to talk to our developers. Agile was in place. This meant we no longer committed to those big bang releases, and we had great guidance and support from our Agile coaches along the way. And we shared our work with developers, and regularly at that too. This kept our designs grounded and feasible. And design contributed to prioritization. This was that grown-up moment for us where design had a voice in conversations around what came next for the product. So we gave ourselves a big gold star for being awesome at collaboration.
But it turns out we weren't. We started to hear feedback like this through conversations and retros and through the grapevine. Design wasn't visible enough and that we weren't taking the team's ideas into account. And also our personal favorite, that we were colluding, which we actually thought sounded pretty cool, like we were spies or something. But it turns out we were having some problems too. So looking back, we were trying to share months of work in these hour-long sessions with our developers, and there felt like an enormous pressure to get it right. So if you forgot something like a small business case or an edge case, it felt like a real failure. And it was hard to hear this, but looking back, it was such a gift because it really pushed us to do a better job for everyone and to find ways of collaborating that worked for everyone in the team. So we went back to our checklist. We were doing things by the book. We were making a real effort to collaborate, but things still weren't working. So what was going wrong? Before we dig into that, here's a little bit of context around the way we were working with teams. So Julie and I, we worked together for around 6 years at Trade Me and Xero. And we were working in multidisciplinary teams, so with testers, product owners, and developers. And because we were working in the mobile space, these teams spanned both the Android and iOS platforms, which meant quite often it was quite large groups. We were also collaborating with other teams, so other disciplines like content strategists and customer experience. And also we were part of the wider design team. Sometimes these teams and people were in the same location, and sometimes they were not.
So back to our collaboration conundrum. After hearing some of that hard feedback, we tried to improve the way we work together with our teams. Being co-located was great, but we reflected on what it meant to be a part of the team, to go beyond being just that design resource or allocation for the team to get the job done. We needed to trust each other and grow understanding of one another as individuals on the team. And we needed to actively contribute to the various ceremonies that we were already attending. But we also needed to be present in the in-between bits too, because collaborating isn't just about being there for meetings, but the entire journey. And we needed to stay connected back to the design team. We were the ones knitting together those overlapping user experiences. And it was lucky that designers in a product group sat together, which made that a bit easier. So Sophie and I were desk buddies for a number of years, and we'd often share a pot of tea and look at our screen flows together, which was really nice. And here's another diagram, but with Agile in place, we had a pretty good cadence to our releases, but it meant most of our teamwork was more focused on this delivery end, which was all about implementation details. But as designers, we were spending a lot more time on the discovery end, which was a huge blind spot for the teams we worked with. So we joined our process together, which sounds really great in theory, and it looks really, really straightforward in a diagram like this. But when discovery is all about critical thinking and a hint of messiness in here and there, it was quite tricky to bring your whole team of 12 into the way you worked.
So what did that look like? It started off pretty small. We were using optional sessions after stand-up to look at printouts up on the wall, or maybe some time at the end of a refinement to get some early feedback on work in progress. And the team, we had a retro, and we decided that this time we were spending together was proving quite valuable. So we booked in a reoccurring session. It was every fortnight, and it was called Design Loop. And they just slotted in alongside our other Agile ceremonies. And you'll see here, this is an example of one of those meeting invites for this design loop. But you'll be able to tell it's a fictional meeting because we got to invite our dream attendees, which of course are our cats. But yeah, looking back, it was really important that we started off having those sessions optional because it really respected people's time. And if this wasn't their thing, that was totally cool. Also, it was important that we proved out the value of this to both ourselves and the team, and those kind of small chunks and gently, so that when we went into that retro to have that discussion, it was a team decision to make that more frequent, not something that we as designers were pushing on anyone. So what did we do in these sessions? They didn't always follow this pattern. This was kind of something that, yeah, we'd kind of change around and adapt depending on the team and the problem. But generally, we'd start out by pulling together all of the things we knew about the problem into a big document. And this was based on the excellent user research team's work. We would also work with our product owner and other people to pull together things like analytics and also customer feedback. And then once we had that big document, we'd synthesize the key findings into something like a slide deck so that we could share that back with the team and maybe illustrate points with things like audio clips. But because these were quite complex financial problems, on some days this just looked like printing out that document, and we'd sit down with the team and we'd all highlight the parts that stood out to us and then share them back.
Then we'd come up with ideas as a team. This was often the most fun bit for all of us, but we had to make sure we were grounded by reviewing the customer problems and all the knowledge we'd built up in that previous step. One of our favorite exercises we'd do here was where you sketched out an idea based on those real scenarios, and then you passed it to your neighbor, who'd then try to improve or iterate on that idea. This encouraged the team to think a bit more laterally, but it also prevented us from getting overly precious or too attached to our initial ideas. And after getting everyone's ideas out on the table, we as designers would collect all the bits and pieces and take them away and try fleshing them out in the context of the product. So we might do a rough wireframes or screen flows on Sketch or Figma. And we concentrated on the most promising ones. The next step was to then evaluate these ideas to come to a best bet solution and decide on an approach to make it real. We'd weigh up solutions through like a souped up version of the dot voting process, where we'd vote around customer impact and reach, the cost and effort of development, and any risks or benefits to business processes that we could identify. And this step was more about the discussions around the clusters of those votes, which then the product owner would be able to take away to analyze and prioritize amongst the other efforts. And once we came to an agreement around what we might build, we'd ask ourselves how we could validate or disprove any assumptions we had around the solution. And depending on how significant the change was going to be, we might do a bit of user testing through a paper or working prototype, depending on what the situation was. But if we were fairly confident on the solution, we'd get straight into build, but making sure we have enough tracking to see how the solution performs in the wild. And after all this, we might have a better picture of the what, the why, and the how of the solution, which set us up nicely for that delivery part.
So what did this mean for the team and the business? Something that became clear was that teams need support and time to build these skills. So we started out with feedback, and this was a great place to start because it was something we were already doing naturally. So we just needed to grow that muscle so it was a bit more centered around the customer and constructive. So to do this, we'd introduce some of the sessions with a little bit of coaching around what good or useful feedback might look like, and also use frameworks like I wish, I wonder, I like to help people structure their thoughts. We built on this by expanding our skills in understanding research, analytics, and feedback. So as the team became more familiar with these types of information, our literacy grew around things like statistical significance, making sure our feedback was representative of all of the people using our product, and not overweighting it if it wasn't. In turn, these foundations informed our solutions. So it sharpened our focus on the problems we should be solving, and the research inspired really interesting solutions that, as a team, we might not have thought of otherwise. We also built our creative thinking skills, so things like not getting too attached to your first idea. This all meant we were better placed to evaluate solutions. So we used methods to ensure that as a team we could find a way forward, but without falling into a design by committee situation. And looking at this, it ended up being many of the activities that you might do in something like a design sprint, but just in smaller chunks and on a regular basis. And this worked really well for our team because it was a bit more predictable, and it was just another team ritual that we did as a part of our work. Something else that became clear was that designers also need support to build these facilitation skills. Facilitating these kind of sessions can make you feel quite vulnerable, and we had plenty of doubts to start with. So one trap was thinking about these sessions as a box to check. This time you spend together as a team always needed to have a really clear goal, and also you needed to have an idea of which activities might be most successful in getting you to that goal. So it's really good if you can buddy up with another designer or someone that can help you plan these sessions and give you a bit of support in the room on the day.
And the environment needs to be right for this process to work too. The team needs a problem to solve, not a feature to build. This autonomy or trust can be a big leap for businesses, but we've seen that over time, teams closer to the work actually become subject matter experts in their own right, and they can be in the best position to solve these problems. And as designers or product people, it's incredibly tempting to have a solution in mind, but keeping an open mind leaves room for surprising solutions and keeps you focused on what matters. It also means you can quickly chuck away any ideas if they won't serve the customers in the end. And there's need for commitment from the business, because the discovery work you do as a team can result in a whole lot of waste if priorities are shifting constantly. After a few years of working in this way, we've experienced some warm fuzzies and cold spikies that we'd like to share with you. Let's start with the cold spikies. So conveying complex problems in limited time. We tried to be really efficient with the time we had together as a team and made sure everyone had enough depth of understanding to solve these problems. But we couldn't shake the feeling that we were oversimplifying these rather huge, complex human problems into these tiny bite-sized chunks. Solve the problem in an hour, go! At times, this was a sentiment we had around trying to solve problems within a session. So we worried that some activities set the expectation that we should indeed be able to solve these really complicated problems in the space of an hour or even minutes. And hazy role boundaries around decision-making, our process was really open and organic, which was good, but it led to interesting conversations around who was responsible and who was ultimately accountable. There were a couple of product owners who were surprised to see how democratic the decision-making process seemed to be, and so we've always had this interesting tension throughout the process. And it quickly escalates into lots and lots of work. So this process works best if you take the team on a journey with you, but planning for these sessions do take time, and the more you involve the team, the more they expect that this is sort of the normal way of working. So it can get out of hand really, really quickly.
And now some of the good things. So we saw that the team had a really good understanding of the problem and the customer. So everyone could put the people using our products at the center of their decision making. We also benefited from a range of input, a range of perspectives, and it was great because some of these approaches meant that we were seeing everyone in the team give their feedback on things, so not just the loudest voices or the most senior people. We also saw shorter, more focused refinements. These became a lot simpler and faster because we went into these sessions with a shared understanding of what the problem was and also the approach that we were going to go forward with. And lastly, we saw the collective growth of skills and happy people. We were challenged to stretch into understanding each other's areas of expertise. And also, we had a less frustration because there was a better understanding of each other's point of view.
And we still have some questions around what this means for us as design practitioners moving forward. Things like, how do you make time for both design and collaboration? Do we want our role to be more focused on facilitation? On our darkest days, we'd ask ourselves, is this just a really convoluted way to persuade people? And is this for everyone?
So while we had these questions at the back of our mind, ultimately we saw a happier team and better product outcomes. The process made the designs more robust, and it made sharing the work less stressful because it was a reflection of the strength of the team, not you as a designer.